Hey guys, I'm Jay Tyler. There seems to be a fair amount of interest in putting Pontics in appliances. So I've already made a couple of videos, one on how to set Pontics, another on how to put Pontics in an Essex retainer, and this week I thought I would make a video on how to put a Pontic in a Hawley type retainer. Here's a model that's got a Pontic on there. We did this a couple of weeks ago on the video showing how to set it. Now the tooth has been set and placed in there. Here's how I would attach it to a retainer. Now for a tooth like this, like a central, I use a variety of burrs to cut undercut into it. Here's a couple of different size Fisher burrs. Here's a little round burr. You can use a reverse cone small burr, that works well. But find out what burr works best for you. Just play around with it. But I'm going to use this Fisher burr here, and I'm going to drill a hole through it. Now I'm going to make this hole a little larger. This burr is dull. I shouldn't have to be cutting this much. Okay. So here I've got a nice big hole, and then I'm going to scratch it up a little bit. Kind of roughen it. And that's going to help enhance the mechanical bond, but the biggest bond is going to be the acrylic flowing through that hole. Now when I put it on the model, you notice it's kind of right up against the model. I want to take a little bit of that away because I want the acrylic to get really good and around this tooth. Okay, so when I put this on here, acrylic will get underneath that. It will get around that hole. It's roughened up. It'll attach to the tooth. Now if you don't do this hole and you just roughen it up, that's not a very good bond. It's not a real good acrylic to acrylic bond in the first place, and it's not a very good mechanical bond. There's not a lot of undercut for it to get into, but this is great. This will wrap around that tooth in that hole and grab that tooth really well. Now let's say that you have a tooth and you don't have that nice acrylic back there on the lingual. Let's go ahead and cut this out. Let's say the only tooth you have is kind of small like that. Well, how would you attach that? Well, I'm going to go ahead and use this Fisher burr and grind out a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to take a small round burr. Let's get in focus here. Focus, focus, there it is. Okay, then we're going to go in here and cut out some undercut. So I'm going to just go around the edges and just cut out undercut. So now the acrylic can get in there and then flow into that undercut, and that will hold it pretty well. And then I'd roughen up also the rest of the acrylic around it, just like I did the other one. Now if you have a little tiny tooth, like a lower incisor, where you don't have much at all to work with, I just use a smaller Fisher burr and drill a hole in it, if I can, if there's room. That burr is pretty sharp. And then I'll just make it a little larger, as large as I can, so that the acrylic can wrap around that hole and really grab a hold of it. Now, if your tooth is like this, a way to enhance that retention is I bend a little wire like this, a little U-shaped wire with little hooks or little elbow bends on each side. And then I will stick it in here into that undercut. Oh, it's kind of big. Let me close it up a little bit. I want to have a little bit of spring tension to it. It's really not this hard. Trying to keep it in frame on video makes it harder. All right, get in there. There it is. All right, so now that's really got a hold of it. Now you've got to make sure you've got undercut cut into here and cut into here at least, and always get undercut up. Just get undercut everywhere you can. Now that, when you pour the acrylic around that, that's really going to grab it well. It makes a real nice little retention wire. Now this wire is real easy to bend. Well, I got a wire here. Let me just show you. It's so easy to bend. You just make a loop, and then you just bend your two little elbows like that, and then just cut them off, leaving a little bit to go into the undercut, and then voila, there you go. Now a note on this, this isn't the tooth for this, but just let me stick it up here just to illustrate. Let's say you got this going on here, and there's a real good chance of getting a bubble in here. So to keep from getting a bubble in there, what I will do sometimes is pour the acrylic, hold it so that I can put a little puddle of acrylic right here, and then tilt it and let it flow in there. And once it does that, it has a chance of filling this void up without getting a bubble in it. Of course, always have a wire or something handy to poke around in there to try to get the bubble out. If you get a bubble in there, it's going to greatly decrease the mechanical bonding. Another thing, if you grind out this area and you grind too close, you're going to see some translucency going on in the labial surface of the tooth. And then if you put, so let's say you're making a green retainer, you're going to have a green spot showing on the labial surface. So to avoid that, you can buy tooth shade acrylic and get the shade that matches the tooth you've got. Make the little puddle here, let that flow in there, take your probe, get all the bubbles out. That way you've got right in this area the tooth shade acrylic, and then go ahead and put your colored acrylic on. All right, that's how I attach a tooth to a Hawley retainer, and I'll see you next week.